We have the man, the myth, the legend, Philip Rossman Reich, Locked On Magic on all your podcasting sites. He's the Magic extraordinaire, knows everything in the kitchen sink about Orlando Magic basketball. Phil, thanks so much for always coming on here. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely happy to be on here and happy to be in a playoff chase. It's new. It's different.
It's very exciting. I haven't felt this excited since the 2009 Dwight Howard days. We won't revisit those, but I want to go before we go into the Magic. I was just talking to you off the air. I sent you a picture yesterday. I was at the Osceola Magic game. Did see Kevon Harris, did see Jed Howard, and obviously Matt McClung, among others. I don't know how in depth you are with the Osceola Magic. Obviously, they are, for people listening, the Orlando Magic's minor league team in the G League. Can you speak about that and what's going on with the Osceola Magic? They have a lot of great players, and it seems like they're playing well.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched a ton of their games because obviously I'm very focused on the Magic and I have some other teams and games I have to focus on as well. But
Right,
they're
that's
playing
true.
really they're playing really well right now. I think they're on a 7-game win streak. They're one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. Mac McClung and Trevelin Queen, who's a two-way player on the Magic, are both high-level G League players. We've seen DJ Wilson, who's a high-level G League player, and even Magic rookie Jed Howard, he's not getting the time with the main roster, but it really feels like the Orlando Magic have made it a point to kind of redshirt him and have him spend a lot of time with the Osceola Magic. And he's shown in that league a lot of things, at least confirmation that he can shoot the ball really, really well. He's a really, really good shooter. And I think what they're seeing from him is trying to find ways to expand his game so that when he does play for the Orlando Magic, and maybe it'll be next year, I hope he'll have a shot at playing with the main roster next year, that he can expand his game and be more than just a shooter, which is ultimately what the Magic are going after. So it feels like it's been a very successful season for Osceola all the way around, and hopefully it ends with another deep playoff push and maybe another G League championship.
Just to extend on Jed Howard, I was, just doing some research on Jed Howard before the game. Obviously, we've seen him a little bit with the Magic, but not really in depth. Researching, there was a SI article that said, did the Magic make a mistake on drafting Jed Howard? What is your take on that? They drafted him very early, and obviously he is not in the rotation.
Yeah, it was, they drafted him 11th, and it was definitely a surprise that they drafted him. Like, I usually put together a pretty robust draft list of guys that I think the Magic are going to take. And I had Jed Howard off my list. I thought his shooting he's a very good shooter, but I thought in college his shooting was not as good as expected. I wasn't impressed with his defensive ability. So I was as shocked as everyone else when the Magic took him. But I tell this to people all the time. You don't draft rookies for their rookie year. You draft them for the first 4 years. And so we're seeing this throughout the league. The Ringer had a great article on this. A lot of teams are using the even sometimes the first 2 years of a rookie contract to let guys get experience in the G League, because a lot of these kids, and Jed Howard played 1 or 2 years at Michigan. A lot of these guys aren't ready to jump straight to the NBA. They need to grow and develop those skills. They need to catch up to the speed of the game. Certainly, I hope that Jed Howard will have a shot at making the rotation next year. I think the Magic should endeavor to give him an opportunity in training camp, at least to make the rotation. But I don't think it's crazy to say, okay, the Magic don't have a lot of room for rookies right now. They're trying to win a little bit. Let's have this guy get playing experience. It's better for him to play 30 minutes in the G League than it is to sit on the bench and do nothing with the main roster. So I think all those, you could say, well, the Magic should have taken Kason Wallace, who's playing meaningful minutes for the Thunder, or Jordan Hawkins, who's playing meaningful minutes for the Pelicans, or even Grady Dick, who's very popular among Magic fans, who's looked really good for the Raptors. But honestly, I would argue all of those players would have a tough time cracking the Magic's rotation anyway, and they'd probably be doing what Jed Howard's doing now. We don't know. It's still way too early to give up on a guy. It's just too early in the process to say this guy's a bust. They need to move on. It's he's got to earn his keep, and obviously he didn't in training camp. But I think this was part of the plan for the Magic all along.
I remember you were very high on Grady Dickey when that during that draft show I think we did last
Yeah.
summer. But just going into last question on the G League, Mac McClung, two-time dunk winner, still hasn't cracked any NBA rosters. Why do you feel like that is? And obviously the Magic have first dibs, but so does every team in the NBA for that matter. And they still haven't really brought him up. And he's produced very well in the
Yeah.
G League for the Magic.
Yeah, I mean, let's. I mean, it can be a little confusing because these teams do have a direct relationship with the Magic. Like the Magic's basketball ops essentially handpicks who is running the team down there. But the Magic have no affiliation with Mac McClung. He can sign with any team with
Right.
no restrictions. He's not on a two-way contract. And the Magic had him in training camp this year, and they essentially picked Trevelyan Queen over him for that last two-way spot. And it's not that Mac McClung's a bad player. And I think in some respects, his dunk contest exploits work against him because now you're just thinking of him, oh, he's just a dunker. No, he's actually a legitimately very good player who's gotten much better over the last 2-3 seasons. He's an excellent scorer at the G League level. He's an improving passer, an improving playmaker. The issue with him is his size. He's not quite a point guard. So for a player his size, playing point guard's almost a necessity with how much bigger the NBA is today. He's not quite a point guard, and he's not big enough and not a good enough shooter to play off the ball. And so there's not a lot of tweeners in the league anymore. Mac McClung is a tweener. And look, I think he's earned an NBA opportunity. I think I saw a stat where all but two-way spots are filled in the league right now. I hope that McClung can latch on somewhere and get an opportunity because he's worked hard to earn it. But he's kind of not what the NBA is looking for. And again, he's just as good as he is at the G League and how important he is as he is for the Osceola Magic. He's not an Orlando Magic kind of player. And, the Magic love those kind of bigger, longer, rangier wings and guards. They want guys who can play multiple positions, have varied skill sets. And that's just not kind of who Mac McClung is right now.
I want to kick this around. We got an audience question, but I do want to go into the Magic after this. But just since we're kind of shooting from the hip right now and not talking full-on Magic basketball, we'll get this audience question out. This question was about the NBA game. Obviously, as you just spoke, it's changed, whether it's the game in general, where it's fouls or guys playing in it, towards what's going on in the arenas. And I've seen this too, just to kind of cap on what the audience member is talking about with the music. There's constant music throughout the whole game. Before it was just the defense chants. It was, the Magic would have, a couple of sound effects during the game, but it's constant music throughout. And you're at the arena all the time, so you know this firsthand. It's constant music throughout the whole game. Do you feel like that's kind of strange for a person that's, we're around the same age and we've seen how the NBA was before to now?
Someone actually was actually on a Reddit on the Magic subreddit, which I creep around there just to see what fans are talking about. And someone mentioned that, and I was just like, and I was like thinking about it, I was like, it's definitely more than it used to be, and maybe I'm just a little bit older, and so I feel the noise a little bit more, but it's definitely more than it used to be. I do think that, especially with the way these arenas are built now, they're a little bit more cavernous. They're not built to trap sound. They're built to be entertainment palaces. And I think there is a push and a struggle to make sure that fans are constantly engaged somehow, because, we all have short attention spans. Our cell phones have shortened our attention spans like crazy. Like we can't focus on one thing for very, very long. And we could get the whole TV ratings thing and all that. And that's always a loaded question. But I do think that the direction that a lot of the arena ops crews have gone, especially during the regular season, during the dog days of the regular season, when fans, should be engaged with the game, but it's not the only reason they come to the game. When you get to the playoffs, everyone's there for the game. You don't have to pump that noise in as much. But I do think that arena ops operations people around the league are just trying to keep fans engaged. If they're bopping to a song while a game is going on, if they're prompting a defense chant, it's a way to keep people engaged. Is it excessive? Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Maybe. It's not something I think about because I'm there for the game. You don't need to convince me to be engaged in the game, and I'm just so used to the soundtrack of it now. It's just like, okay, whatever. It's a little noisy, but I can live with it.
Yeah, it's just a lot different than, as you just stated, Phil, than when we were growing up.
I mean, like you go to the Orlando Arena, like there was nothing else to do in that building. The old Orlando Arena, you were going there for the game, and I miss those days because that's the arena I grew up going to. I
Right.
only cared about the game. When they opened the Kia Center now, and they said, "Oh, we're going to have a restaurant here. We're going to have a playground up on the third floor for the kids. We're going to have all these bells and whistles like that." That's great. I guess that's what people want when they come to the arenas. But dude, I just want to go to the game, get my pizza, sit down on my seat, watch a game. That's how I always was as a fan. I didn't want to do anything else. For me, I don't need those bells and whistles. So I'm a little confused that some people do, but that's just kind of how the world is right now.
We'll end with this. I'll tell you what, if I'm paying $100, $200 for a ticket, I'm not going and eat in a restaurant. I'm going for the game. But that's me. I don't like to waste money on
Yeah.
just going out to eat at a restaurant. It's
Well,
just
they
you
have the
pay to,
restaurant inside the arena now. Like
yeah,
it's all part of the experience. Yeah.
I
It's
don't know.
people want the bells and whistles. I mean, like, look, it's different now. They're competing for attention. Like it's not the same as it used to be.
I don't know. I don't have money to waste like that. But let's get into the real deal, Shaquille O'Neal here. And well, since we're bringing up Shaquille O'Neal, obviously the Magic just retired his jersey. He was there for 4 years, obviously led the Magic to the NBA Finals. It was a sweep against the Rockets. We won't dive too deep into that.
Thank
But
you.
regardless of that, do you believe that the Magic should have retired Shaq's jersey? Didn't win a championship in Orlando, left as a free agent. I think the Magic screwed that up. Maybe you differ. But regardless of that, do you believe that Shaq's jersey should have been retired for the Magic?
I absolutely do.
Okay.
I think about it this way. Like whenever you tell the story of the Orlando Magic, Shaquille O'Neal is going to be a vital piece of that story.
Right.
You cannot avoid him. I would even argue the Magic, even a decade after Shaq left, were still making mistakes to avoid doing what happened with Shaq and made a whole bunch of new mistakes in the process. To me, to me, I know he wasn't with the team very long, and I listened to a few national people talk about this and debate this, and
Right.
it was just like, I get it from the national perspective. It seems kind of kind of funny because and I think some Magic fans still feel this way. Like he left Orlando, like he left the franchise kind of high and dry. I
Well,
agree with you. I agree with you. The Magic messed some things up, and they were very naive and young as a franchise and organization. It's a very, very different time as well. But I still think, regardless of that, Shaq is still one of the one of the two best players in franchise history, probably the best player in franchise history. There's people, we can have that debate another day.
yeah.
Those teams that he was on were probably the best teams in Magic history. The 95 team was if it's not the best team in Magic history, it's the second best team in Magic history.
Mhm.
Those 4 years are Magic history. Like there will probably, until the Magic win a championship, there
Mhm.
will not, and even then, it may not reach the highs and the Magic, pun intended, of those early seasons and those seasons with Shaq. I think about it this way too. Like there's not only just not a more important person in Magic history, just defining Magic history. There's probably, aside from Arnold Palmer, there's probably not a more important sports figure in Orlando history. Like I would honestly argue Shaq is one of probably the 50 most important people to ever live in Orlando. Like as just overall, not even just sports. Like he
I
changed.
would put Tiger in there though too.
No, I mean Tiger lived here, but he wasn't about Orlando. Like Arnold Palmer made the Arnold Palmer Invitational, made the
Fair.
golf tournament a big thing. We could have that debate. That's not the point of
Sure.
the statement. The statement is to say Shaq put Orlando on the map as a city in a way that no other athlete should do or probably will ever do, because Orlando is just such a different city now than it was in the mid 90s. Like he gave this city an identity, and that's why his departure was so gutting and why he's so important. And so I honestly, like, until someone wins a championship, if you're going to retire any jersey in Magic history, and I've gone back and forth on whether they should or not. If you're going to retire any jersey in Magic history, if you don't retire Shaq's jersey, you've done it wrong. He is just that important to telling the story of this franchise. And so I think you have to let bygones be bygones. Remember, the good times always outweigh the bad. He's just so vitally important. And frankly, it was just really good to see him get the hero's welcome and get the love that he got that evening.
quickly, I just want to go through some other great players in Magic history and just ask you, as an avid Magic fan,
I got my list.
reporting
I
on
have
the
my list
team,
already set.
do you have Penny Hardaway as a
Yes.
retire?
Yes.
What about T-Mac?
I have T Mac as well. Yes.
But it's the same number, though.
I've retired both of them. There's teams that
Okay.
have retired both numbers. Like the actual mechanic of retiring your jersey, I'm not. I don't really care about. If someone else wears 32, that's not what matters to me. What matters to me is that when you go into the bowl, when you sit down at your seat inside the Kia Center, you look up at the rafters, and that person's presence is hanging over, is literally physically hanging over you, and letting you know this person is important to us. This is the measure that everyone who wears this jersey has to measure up to. And especially like I think about this a lot. As I'm the same age as the Magic. I'm 35. As I get older, when I bring my if I bring my kids to the arena, they're not going to have seen Shaq play. I'll be able to point out and say, I saw Shaq play. I can tell you all about what this person did, show you highlights of him. It forces a younger generation to say, I want to watch Shaq play in a Magic jersey. Let me see what that looked like. And that's, to me, that's what a retired jersey really represents, is this person is so important and so big that not only, are we going to physically retire that jersey so no one else can wear his number again, but they're going to be a presence inside our building. And when we watch games today, people will still be able to look up and see that person's presence on our franchise. And I think that's really what it means.
So just to put the bow on this, you
Yeah.
have Shaq, Penny, Nick Anderson, I'm assuming.
Nick Anderson should be there.
Okay.
Absolutely. That one,
And then,
a lot of non-Magic fans won't get it, and that's okay. Magic,
right.
I agree with Shaq. I'm very glad Shaq was on this journey with us too. Nick Anderson probably should have been the first jersey put up there. I get why it was Shaq. I'm not disagreeing with it, but Nick should be number 25, should be hanging up there very, very soon.
And then T-Mac, Dwight,
And that's
anybody
why
else, or is
that's where
that
I
it?
cut it off. That's where I cut it off.
Okay.
This essentially the Mount Rushmore for Magic fans, and Nick Anderson just because he's just so important to the franchise as a person.
Okay, very good. Now let's get into the season now. 35 in 27. This is a team that in January was floundering pretty hard. The shooting wasn't there. The free throw issue has been good some days and pretty horrific other days. But it seems like this is the time where the team is kicking into gear. I remember last year when, what was it, 8 or 9 in a row? And that Magic team last year was really kicking into gear at that time. Obviously, they didn't make the playoffs, but they did finish the season somewhat strong. This team looks really well-rounded. It looks almost like the Hot and Hustle team of the 99-2000 year. Do you agree with that? Or is this team even better than maybe that Hot and Hustle team?
This team is better than the Heart and Hustle team. Like that, the Heart and Hustle team, and they're similar in that they both can't score and they defend at a really high level. But that team didn't have a defined star. Like that NBA was just so different. And they
would you say
so
Darrell Armstrong was the star, though?
He was the star of that team, but like no one's pretending Darrell Armstrong was an all-star the way that Paolo.
By the way, I do just to interject quickly. I do retire Darrell Armstrong's number.
I think that's kind of where I draw the line. Just like
okay.
Like no all-star appearances. He did win most improved. He did win sixth man, but like no all-star appearances.
But he was extremely important to every year he was on the Magic.
He's in the team Hall of Fame. Like so, the Magic have the Orlando Magic Hall of Fame and jersey retirement. They're two separate things. I think that because you separated those things, you can put some guys in this box and then take guys out of that box and put them in the other box. And so I think jersey retirement should be very, 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 very selective. And Nick Anderson is the only special case that I think gets in without like being a multi-time all-star, like a perennial all-star on the team. Love Darrell Armstrong to death. I love being there when he got inducted into the Orlando Magic Hall of Fame. He's like Jameer Nelson's the same way. Like I love Jameer Nelson to death. I don't think they should hang 14. I think Jameer Nelson is clear Hall of Famer. Tito Trickle, same deal. Not Hall of Fame.
Same thing. Bo Outlaw, same thing. You don't hang it up. Put it in
you don't hang a jersey, but you do recognize and honor them in a way. That's the tangent. But this Magic team, they have that guy. Like Like that, the difference between that heart and hustle team, like they caught lightning in a bottle. They played really, really well. They were scrambling at all times. This team has a dude. Like Paolo Banchero is a dude. Like that guy, this like the last time the Magic made the playoffs was 2020. And the 2019 and 2020 seasons, it was great. The Magic getting back to the playoffs the first time since Dwight Howard left, it felt like really cathartic. I was like, okay, we're a good team again, but it didn't feel permanent. Like that group was clearly bumping up against its ceiling. Nikola Vucevic, Evan Fournier, Aaron Gordon. It was great to see them break through and make those 7 years of pain worth it. But it always felt like that was the end of the road. This feels like the beginning of something. Like this feels like they're just starting to cook, and they're going through all of this for the first time. They're going to make some mistakes. They're going to struggle in the playoffs. It really does feel like this group knows that it's starting something, that they are about to start a multi-year playoff journey, and that's the part that's so exciting, and why this group just feels different.
I think the MVP of this team, especially right now, is not Paolo. It's Mo Wagner. I mean, this guy is really kicking some ASS. I mean, he is rebounding, scoring. He's dunking on people. He is the hot and hustle for this team. Him and Cole Anthony are the hot and hustle for the Orlando Magic right now. But let's start one at a time. Talk about how Mo Wagner is he is the dude right now for the second unit.
He just understands his role so well. Like I think MVP is probably a little much. Like
for the second unit, I'm saying.
I mean, but look, the Magic's depth is one of their strengths. Like they bring their bench group in, and they play with the same fire and intensity. They may not have perfect players, but they don't relent. They don't give up. And like Mo Wagner, 3 years ago was on his last legs in the NBA. Like
they
when
resurrected his career.
The Magic signed him for the end of the 2021 season. He played 12 games. I thought this guy's cooked. This guy's just not very good. Like I will cop to that. Like I was like, this guy's not good. And he's remade himself into just a super efficient player. He doesn't do more than he needs to do. Like he does exactly what he's good at, and that's what the team needs him to do. And it's a credit to all those players off the bench. Joe Ingles, Cole Anthony, Mo Wagner, Gary Harris when he plays off the bench, Jonathan Isaac. All those guys have just this full understanding, and more importantly, a just full buy-in to what they have to do for this team to succeed. And they just all work really, really well together. I mean, I think, the Magic talk about their continuity and their familiarity a lot. That stuff really does play out. It really does seem like it meshes with this team, and they play at such a high level because of it.
Why do you feel like the Magic mesh so good together? Do you feel like it's because everybody is fairly young and that's why the team is so together? Or is it just the GM just doing a hell of a job?
I mean, it's all of it. Like, culture is every piece of it. It's you have good players who play well and accept their roles. You have good people that cheer, that really back each other. I mean, I think it does say something. The Magic have had virtually the same roster for 3 years, and Mo Wagner's probably one of the most insightful guys on this because he's one of the veterans on the team. He said when they went on their 9-game winning streak and everyone was singing their praises and everyone was going crazy about them, he was like, this success isn't something that just happened this year. This success is something we've been working on for 3 years. And you can just sense from everyone on this team that there is a feeling of ownership, that this is not something that happened overnight. This is something that they've been working on for a long, long time. And there's been a lot of failure. There's been a lot of doubters. There's been a lot of people not giving them praise for all the work. And now the results are starting to come. And it's just complete buy-in from everyone. I think it's a credit to Jamal Mosley and his coaching staff. And Jamal Mosley would credit his coaching staff more than him, but I will credit Jamal Mosley. He's been in everyone's ear. He's been preaching the principles that are going to be their success. And even when it wasn't working 1-2 years ago, he was saying, this is the team we're going to be. If we stick with this, we're going to be that team. And this year they've become that team. And you can just feel now that they're getting some success, now that they're experiencing some success, you can just feel the confidence of like, we've been doing this for 3 years. We just have to keep doing it. And it's really impressive to see all those pieces come together like this. And again, it's a credit to everyone. Like it's a credit to everyone for being so bought in to what they're doing.
We talk about the biggest surprise. Would you say Anthony Black? Because that's my opinion.
Um, you know, I don't want to say it's Anthony Black just because he's a rookie and rookies are always surprising. And you know, he gave them really good minutes early in the season. He's kind of out of the rotation right now just because the Magic have too many guys. They have too many guys they need to play. And Anthony Black is one of them. But like, I will say this, like, you know, we talked about Jet Howard and the Magic's plan for him. It's a credit to Anthony Black that he was starting early in the year and played really, really well. Like he deserves minutes, and the Magic have to find ways to get him minutes. But he's gone to a bench role where he's not playing a lot anymore. But every time his number's called, he does something good. And again, that's a credit to him. That's a credit to the culture that the Magic have built. That's a credit to the coaching staff for keeping him ready and helping him, you know, helping him make the most of this rookie year. Everyone does their part. You know, Goga Bitadze is kind of the same deal. Like he started in December, in November and December when the Magic built their win streak. He doesn't play anymore. He's not playing anymore. But when his number's called, he steps up and delivers exactly what he was doing in November. And, you know, everyone's played their role. Like everyone's done their part. You know, I tell people this all the time. Everyone on the roster is going to be called upon at some point to give you quality minutes. And everyone on the team's got to be ready. And you have to have confidence in everyone on the team. That's been the case for the Magic. Like everyone has stepped up when their number's been called for the most part.
Last few questions. Are you worried? We see this every year with the Markel Fultz injury, Jonathan Isaac's injuries. It's the same thing over. These guys are great players. Fultz was the #1 pick. When he's played in the game, played last night, played great. You know, Isaac, when he plays, he's blocking shots, he's rebounding, he's scoring. But it's constant injuries with these two guys. And again, it goes to, are you going to keep these guys next year? And, you know, keeping this team together, regardless of what happens in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, the Magic are coming to a different point now. Like obviously they're evolving to a different team. You know, they were a rebuilding team where you could take some risks and you could take some gambles, and you could say we are willing to wait out a Markel Fultz injury or a Jonathan Isaac injury. You know, winning is important, but it's not the most important thing. Like right now, it's okay. Let's see what we have. Let's see what our talent is. The Magic are obviously evolving into something else now. Like obviously now they're becoming a team that is trying to win, where the results matter as much as the process and as much as everything else. And those kinds of teams, you know, can't spend $30 million on two guys that you don't know are going to play. You know, Markel Fultz, unfortunately, this year has really struggled with injury. He's played, I think, 25 games this season. And he's been fine when he's in there, but you also look at how the Magic play when he's in. The offense tanks, the offense like hits rock bottom, and defenses are just totally unconcerned with his shooting, even from mid-range. Like they're just playing just so far off him. And that just can't happen if you're a team that's serious about winning. Like you've got to be able to spread the floor, and that's been the Magic's biggest problem. If you're a team like the Magic and they're still young and they should be willing to let guys grow and make mistakes still, the pressure shouldn't be all about winning. It should still be about getting better to some extent. They probably can only afford to have one of those types of players. They can probably only afford to say, we can only have one injury, risk player. Injury prone player. Yeah. And, you know, Isaac's been relatively fine this year. You know, he's had some knee issues and they've just been super, super cautious with him. But when he's in the game, like he is still an otherworldly defender. And you know, like I think Mo Wagner is going to be this way off the bench too, but Jonathan Isaac's going to change a playoff game. He's going to make a blowout loss into a close game in a playoff series. He's going to turn a close game into a Magic win just because of his minutes. And the Magic are going to deploy him late in games. Like, they want to use him. I don't see any way that the Magic don't have Jonathan Isaac next year. But I do think the Magic are ultimately going to move on from Markelle Fultz and probably look for some point guard help. They're going to see what the playoffs look like, I think, before they do anything else, especially just kind of looking at Jalen Suggs and whether he can handle those responsibilities in the playoffs. But they're going to probably look to shore that part of their roster up this offseason as they look to take their next step.
So could you see Jalen Suggs being the point guard, or Anthony Black, or who do you see there if they move on from Fultz?
I mean, I think they want it to be Jalen Suggs. They want to be able to at least have Jalen Suggs be the nominal point guard, in sort of the same way that Marcus Smart was the point guard for the Celtics. Yeah. That's the usual comp that people have for Jalen Suggs. If you watch the Magic a lot, Paolo Banchero initiates a lot of actions. Like, he's not running point, but he's a de facto point guard. Franz Wagner does the same. The Magic don't need a traditional point guard who's just always the one calling plays and initiating action, because they got these 6'10" dudes who can drive and kick and pass and do all that stuff, and they still make a lot of mistakes. But they're grooming them into players who can make decisions off the dribble. That's so I don't think the Magic need a traditional point guard. But I do think they need someone who can settle them down. And so whether that's Jalen Suggs and an organizer, whether that's Jalen Suggs or not, I think that's something that they'll start to evaluate when they get to the playoffs. And if it turns out he can do that a little bit more than they think, or can do it successfully in the playoffs, maybe that changes who the Magic target in the offseason. Maybe they do try and make a run at Buddy Hield, although I don't think he'll go anywhere. Maybe they do try and make a run at Malik Monk. Maybe they do make a trade to add a shooting guard to replace Gary Harris and run Jalen Suggs as the de facto point guard. These are things they have to learn in the playoffs before they make decisions. I think that's one of the reasons why they sat tight at the trade deadline, because they don't really know what they need yet.
I want to talk with the last two questions about the schedule coming up. Obviously, they're facing a lot of under 500 teams coming up. These should be fairly easy wins. It looks like the Magic could get as high as maybe third or fourth in the Eastern Conference. What do you expect from the next few games? Because, even though these teams stink, they could surprise you. I mean, yeah.
I mean, to the Magic's credit, I think they've got what is the record? I think they only have 7 losses to teams with records below 500 this year. 3 of them are to Atlanta, and 2 of them are to Brooklyn. So they don't lose a lot of these games to the bad teams. I think the other losses are the Warriors. I think they're still under 500, and the Lakers, I want to say. But they don't, and those are different teams. They don't lose a lot. They don't lose a lot of these games. And that's a real big sign of their maturity and their poise to take care of their business, to win these kinds of basketball games and to build their record up. That's what the good teams do. The good teams don't necessarily do great against the above 500 teams. They may go 500, certainly a little bit better than 500, but they feast on the really bad teams. They don't have bad losses on their resume. That's something the Magic have done fairly successfully this year. So, they are going to be challenged, but it's not just that they have a lot of these teams that are under 500. I think they have the 3rd easiest schedule in the league by opponent win percentage now that Detroit's off their schedule. It's that a lot of these games are at home. They just finished a 3-game homestand, but they have an 8-game homestand coming up in March. They have, I think, 12 home games left. 8 of them are going to come end of March at home. There's some good teams in there. The Clippers come to town. The Kings come to town. The Warriors come to town. But largely and the Pelicans come to town. But it is largely a very manageable homestand. And, we sat there. The Magic are getting ready to complete a 7-game stretch of games against teams under 500. And I think, I sat there and said, the Magic got to go 5-2 or 6-1 on that stretch if they want to compete for 6-5-4 seed, if they want to assure their playoff spot. When they get to that homestand in March, they've got to go 5-3, 6-2. If they go 5-3, 6-2, we're probably looking at a team that's going to be in the 4-5 matchup, if not assuring themselves of the 6th seed. If they struggle a little bit in that stretch, they're still going to be fine. They're still going to be fighting for the 6 or 7 seed. They got 2 really big games this week. They play the Knicks on Friday in the Garden, in Madison Square Garden, and then they're home against the Pacers. Those are humongous games. It's probably honestly, I've been telling people those are probably the 2 biggest games left on the schedule. They do play Philadelphia at Philadelphia very, very late in the season, but they gotta prove themselves against those quality teams, even if they're a little bit hurt. And if they do that, they're going to establish themselves, in the playoffs. And I'm starting to do standings checks. I'm starting to do like watching out of town scoreboards, but ultimately I'm sure I would say the same thing that the Magic are saying. If the Magic take care of their business, they're going to finish a top 6 seed, avoid the play-in entirely, maybe get to the 4 or 5. And if things really break the right way, have home court advantage for that first playoff series, which would just be a dream come true for this team.
So your prediction is the highest is 4th.
Yeah, I don't think they'll get to 3. I don't think that I think they're 3.5 behind the Bucks for third. The end of their season is really, really tough. They play 5 of their last 7 games on the road. Their last road trip is at Houston, back-to-back at Milwaukee, which that's a schedule loss. Then they go at Philadelphia, and then they finish the season home versus Milwaukee. So if they're 3 games back of Milwaukee toward the end of the season, it's not impossible. Beating the Bucks twice would be really, really hard, especially, like I said, with a Houston-Milwaukee back-to-back. They're road heavy at the end of the season, and so I think they may sputter a bit heading into the playoffs. But look, I think the goal for the Magic should be to finish at least 6th. I think if they can avoid the play-in, that would be a heck of a run to finish the season. They're experiencing pressure for the first time. That's all you can ask for a young team.
Yeah, I agree. 4 to 6 would be great. Anything less than that would be really bad.
It would be fine. Like, it's not the end of playing the play-in is not the end of the
Yeah,
world.
but if you lose the play-in, it's
you
not.
don't want to do that. But
Yeah.
like, look, this is, I mean, I love the idea of the play-in. I'm a big fan of it.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of it is typically the teams that finish 7th or 8th are teams that are either on the way out and the end of their championship, the end of their playoff window, or teams on the way up, teams that need playoff experience. And so for a team like the Magic, you're gambling a little bit, and I think getting to a 7-game series is the most important thing. But a team like the Magic to experience a Game 7 atmosphere and experience success, because typically that first playoff series you're losing in 5. You're getting swept. Dwight Howard's first playoffs in 2007, they got swept by the Detroit Pistons. Shaq's first playoff, they played the Indiana Pacers, a much more veteran team. They got swept in that best of 5 series. So usually that first playoff experience, you don't experience a lot of success. And so for a young team, I think to have the opportunity to play a single elimination pressure-packed game and experience success in it, I think that is really, really good for development. So I'm not against going to the play-in. I obviously, I think ideally finish as high as you can. Getting to a 7-game series is the most important thing, but it's not the end of the world for this team to get that experience and try and have a chance for real success at it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Ingles is the only guy that's had playoff experience on the Magic, right?
There are 4 players on the Magic with playoff experience. Joe Ingles has the most. Gary Harris played with the Nuggets, and then Jonathan Isaac and Markelle Fultz were both on the 2019 team. Markelle Fultz was on the 2020 team. Isaac was on the 2019 team for the Magic.
Okay, so there's
not a lot though. It's not a lot. It's like 60 some odd total games. Like, whoever they face will have a lot more playoff experience.
And Philip Rossman Riech here on Fire Breathing Rob. Phil, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Locked On Magic on all your podcasting sites, YouTube. Anything else the viewers can find you on? I know you have a Twitter for you, right?
I'm everywhere, man. You can find me find my writing at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Follow me there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. My personal account is at PhilipRR_OMD. That's where I post a lot of my Locked On Magic updates, as well as links to my Patreon page if you want a little bit more. We'll go a little bit deeper on the Magic. That's it. Those are the main Magic places to find me. If you'd like, I do some other work around the city as well. But that's the main thing here.
And I hope the Magic do well as you do. I know you hope so too, and I know you're at all the home games. So keep up the great work, and hopefully the Magic will have at least a real good playoff run. I mean, that's all we can hope for. I've told
a lot of people this. Just, this team getting there is the first step. Like, this is the first step of a long journey, and so let's enjoy the ride. This is the last season they're going to get to play without any pressure. Next year, it's going to be okay. Do better. And that's a whole different animal.
Locked On Magic, YouTube, every podcasting site you can get your hands on. You can find Phil on Locked On Magic. Definitely check it out. Phil, it's always a pleasure.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on.